Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why some people just seem to click with math while others dread it? Well, this fascinating new study dives deep into exactly that, exploring what builds confidence in math across 49 countries. Think about it, math anxiety is super common, right? So many of us feel nervous or just plain bad at math. Researchers have spent a lot of time trying to figure out why, and one thing they consistently find is that if you are anxious about math, you probably don't perform as well in math. But what comes first? Does feeling bad about math make you do worse? Or does doing poorly in math make you feel bad about it? This study tackles a big part of that puzzle. The big question here was whether how a school is made up, like the mix of students' backgrounds, affects how confident students feel in math. We know school makeup can influence how well kids do, but does it actually build confidence, or is it something else? This research looked at how different things in schools, like how safe kids feel, the resources they have, and how the school is run, all work together to build math confidence and, in turn, how well students do on math tests. They compared these factors to the actual socioeconomic makeup of the school. So how did they do this super cool cross-country study? They used data from a huge international test called TIMSS from 2011, looking at fourth graders in 49 different countries. They used some pretty advanced math talk, like generalized linear mixed models and Bayesian multi-level mediation. Now, don't let those fancy terms scare you. Basically, they used fancy computer programs to look at all this data. They wanted to see if things like feeling safe in class, having enough books and computers, or having a strong academic focus at school all worked through math confidence to help students do better on math questions. They even compared these everyday school factors to the overall socioeconomic status of the students in a school. And wow, did they find some interesting stuff. The biggest winner, the most reliable way to build math confidence across almost all countries was the emotional climate of the classroom. Specifically, two things, school safety and how much students enjoyed math. School safety, meaning kids felt safe from bullying, supported when they tried new things, and that mistakes were okay for learning. This actually helped kids feel more confident in math in more than half of the countries. But the absolute superstar, the factor that worked everywhere, was mathematical enjoyment. When kids genuinely liked doing math, it boosted their confidence universally. Then they looked at material resources. Things like having enough textbooks, computers, and good learning materials. These also played a role, especially in European countries and other high-performing systems. Access to good resources seemed to really help build confidence, but it wasn't as universal as the emotional climate. Early learning experiences, like starting with numeracy activities at home before school, also showed strong effects in those same regions. What about how focused on academics the school was? This had a smaller effect. Things like principals and teachers emphasizing academic success didn't seem to translate as strongly into building math confidence across the board, though it did contribute a bit. Now here is where it gets really interesting. Remember how they compared everything to the socioeconomic makeup of the school, meaning the mix of wealthier or less wealthy students. This factor's impact was all over the place and depended heavily on the culture in Anglo-Saxon countries. Being in a school with more affluent kids actually seemed to lower confidence, potentially because of social comparison, comparing yourself to others. But in Confucian heritage systems, like in parts of Asia, having wealthier peers seemed to boost confidence, maybe because of shared high expectations and the focus on collective achievement. This shows that school composition isn't a simple cookie-cutter influence. So, what is the big takeaway? This study really challenges the idea that just mixing up the socioeconomic background of students in a school is the magic bullet for improving math achievement or confidence. Those kinds of interventions are complex and don't work everywhere. Instead, the study strongly emphasizes focusing on things schools can actually change, creating safe and enjoyable learning environment. The researchers suggest that policy should be tailored to resources. In places with fewer resources, focusing on psychological safety might be the most effective and affordable way to build confidence. In richer areas, they can combine emotional climate strategies with investing in material resources and early learning. Let's zoom out on what this means for everyday learning. The study highlights that the feeling of being in a math class really matters. When students feel safe to take risks and not afraid of making mistakes, and when they actually find math interesting, their confidence grows. This confidence then helps them tackle harder problems and perform better. Think about what that means for teachers and schools. Creating a classroom where students feel supported by their teacher and peers is super important. It's not just about being nice, it is about building a foundation for learning. When students aren't worried about being embarrassed or feeling dumb, they're more likely to engage with challenging math problems. And that enjoyment piece, if math is presented as a puzzle, a game, or something that connects to the real world in an interesting way, kids are more likely to stick with it when it gets tough. It is like giving them the fuel to keep going. Resources are important too, but it is more about how they enable good teaching. Having a well-stocked classroom with manipulatives or technology doesn't automatically make kids more confident, but it does give teachers the tools to create those engaging and safe learning experiences that do build confidence. So resources are more like the ingredients that allow the chef to cook a great meal, rather than the meal itself. The findings about school composition are really significant. It shows that just putting students from similar backgrounds together or mixing them up isn't a simple fix. The effect is so culturally dependent. In some places, being around high achievers might push you to try harder, and in others, it might make you feel less capable. The study really pushes back against a one-size-fits-all approach. It says that instead of focusing on the structural makeup of schools, we should really zoom in on what is happening inside the classroom and how schools can actively foster confidence. What's amazing is that math confidence itself ended up being the one thing that was consistently important everywhere. It was in every single final model they looked at. So, no matter what else was going on, math confidence was always a key player in how students performed. But beyond just confidence, they found that different countries had different combinations of things that worked. Some countries had very simple models with just confidence and one other factor, while others had much more complex models with several factors working together. The most striking finding was the power of enjoyment. Wherever it was measured, liking math was a predictor that worked through confidence to boost achievement. This shows that making math engaging and fun is absolutely crucial, not just for enjoyment's sake, but for building confidence and improving performance. Safety was also a big deal, helping in about half the countries looked at. This suggests that creating a secure and supportive environment is a fundamental building block for math confidence. It is really interesting that things like academic emphasis, which sound so important, didn't show up as strong confidence builders. This might mean that just telling students to focus more on academics doesn't automatically make them feel more confident unless it's coupled with genuinely supportive and engaging practices. And again, school composition, it only played a role in a small fraction of countries, and when it did, its effect was either positive or negative, depending on the culture, reinforcing that it is not a universal driver of confidence. Let's talk about the size of the effects. Enjoyment of math had the biggest impact on confidence, which then led to better performance. Safety and resources had more moderate effects, but still important ones. Early learning was a smaller effect, and school composition and academic emphasis effects were pretty much zero when you look at the big picture across all countries. The discussion section really hammers home the point about emotional climate. It's like the foundational element creating safe classrooms where mistakes are seen as learning opportunities is huge, especially in places with fewer resources. This suggests that focusing on creating a positive emotional environment is a high-impact, low-cost intervention. And the resource findings are key. They're not saying resources don't matter, but that their impact is more concentrated in certain types of countries, like highly developed ones. This implies that countries with fewer resources might need to prioritize emotional climate interventions, while wealthier countries can build on that with thoughtful resource allocation. The lack of strong mediation through academic emphasis in this study is quite telling. It might be that academic emphasis is more about direct instruction or curriculum delivery, rather than directly building a student's belief in their own math abilities. This part on school composition is probably the most nuanced. The fact that in Anglo-Saxon countries, higher-assessed peers seem to hurt confidence, while in Confucian heritage systems, they seem to help really highlights how complex social dynamics are. It's not just about wealth, but about the cultural norms and values associated with it. What is fascinating is the heterogeneity even within cultural groups. You can't just say European countries or Anglo-Saxon countries and predict exactly how they build math confidence. It shows that national policies, history, and resource distribution really matter. Every country seems to have its own unique mix. Now, it is important to acknowledge the study's limitations. They mentioned that because the study is cross-sectional, they can't definitively say that confidence causes achievement, even though their mediation model suggests it. There is evidence that doing well can also boost confidence. Also, the measures for institutional structures might not have been specific enough to capture subtle confidence-building behaviors. And these are based on student perceptions, not objective conditions. So to wrap it all up, this study gives us a really clear message. Building math confidence is much more about what schools do rather than who they enroll. Creating psychologically safe classrooms, fostering enjoyment of math, and providing the right resources, these are the actionable steps that can make a real difference. It is about creating the conditions where confidence can blossom And that seems to be the most effective path to helping all students succeed in mathematics. What do you think about these findings? Does this resonate with your own experiences with math? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this breakdown helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to Rubin's Mind Lab for more science explained, simply. And hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Thanks for watching.